Blog Talk Radio.
Live from Washington, D.C., it's Quintessential Listening, Poetry Online Radio. QLPOR, as it's widely known, features a bevy of poets, spoken word artists, and live poetry readings with best-selling authors. Your host is Dr. Michael Anthony Ingram.
Good evening, everyone. My special guest tonight is poet and prolific author Teresa James. Welcome, Teresa, to the program.
Thank you much, and thank you for having me.
Oh, you're more than welcome. You're more than welcome. Let's begin our journey together, all right?
Great.
All right. Say it with some enthusiasm.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's
sorry
okay.
about that one.
All right, good. As you think about your writing, you've written 4 books. You have hundreds of poems. What is poetry?
What is poetry? Well, I think it's best that I describe what it is for me. As
yes.
even written on my book, The Heart of a Rose, on the front cover, poetry is beauty and intensity of emotion expressed by words. And even with that, I think it even goes a little bit deeper as far as how it's written. Poetry is just, it's more than just, prose. It's more than just talking and, putting out feelings and emotion. I think that there's some skill, there's some literature aspects of it, and things like that. So, but for me, it's about emotion, and it's about how you write those emotions to become poetry.
Oh wow, very nice, nicely stated. Just not like spilling out words, because, I read poetry all day and every single day because, I have poetry groups and, okay.
I read a lot of writing and a lot of things that, and for me, because, in my opinion, it's like some of these things are just people just throwing out words and throwing out emotions, but then it's not poetry. It's
right.
just not poetry. So,
mm-hmm.
for me, there's something that I look for when I decide this is poetry.
All right. Why do you think, based on what you know, that poetry is important? Why is it important?
Oh, gosh. That's a hard one. It's important for me because, also, with me dealing with other authors, and they write different types of books and romance and all different types of things. It's not important for them. So I could only speak
mm-hmm.
on why it's important to me.
Yes.
I've had people say that, they don't like poetry, but poetry is important, and it goes back thousands of years. I mean, even if you read the Bible, for one, the whole book of the Song of Solomon is a book of poetry, the whole entire book.
Yes.
So, I mean, poetry has been our roots. It has been with us for generations. It's a part of who we are.
Wow. I already enjoy listening to you. I like that. Please share a poem.
Okay. I didn't choose any. So okay, let's do this one. This one happens to be one of my favorite poems.
All right.
And I don't know exactly what makes it my favorite, but I just love it. So let's just start. If I was a painting, I would be a Picasso and possess how the eyes see beauty. I'd be the colors that soothe the soul. I'd be the boldness that meets the canvas. I'd be the richness of expression from the start to bring about the passion for art. I'd be a masterpiece of exuberance, which makes my eyes dance merrily. My colors would display hues of clarity. I'd be my own exhibit on display for all to see. Red, blue, orange, and green. If I was a painting, that's what I'd be, a Picasso, bold and strikingly. That's the end of that one.
Wow, I like that. I like that. You'd be a Picasso. Wow, I like that a lot. As you think about your body of work, what are some of the predominant themes?
The predominant things.
What do you write about?
The predominant things of what I write about.
Yes.
Once again, for me, as many who know my work know that I write from pure emotion. I write from a place that comes, from deep within. Like, I can't just write a poem because I look at a picture. I can't just write a poem like if someone says, okay, I want you to write a poem on the blue sky. I don't do that because my emotion is driven, and my poems are driven from a very deep place that, when it's time to surface, it comes out, and it's very deep for me. So that's one of the things that I guess I predominantly write poems.
All right. You mentioned pure emotion. Poetry, in many instances, is about emotion. Do you think that someone can be called a poet if they don't feel strong emotions?
I believe because, to a certain extent, yeah, because, it's also an art. And as with anything, things can be taught. So I think that anyone can learn to write poetry. But I think that the greatest poets are ones who have gone through things or that have suffered or who have experienced life to bring about the emotions that are needed to make a strong poem. I always say that a great poet has suffered.
All right. Wow. Oh, you're ready. Great. I like that. How does a poem begin for you, Teresa? With an idea, a form, or an image?
Once again, I go back to that emotion. For me, it always stems from, something that I've been through or something that I'm going through or something that I want the world to hear or something, a lot of my poems are metaphoric, and I love to use those type of metaphors in my poems, where I use, like the rose, for instance, the heart of a rose. That whole book, it really truly isn't about roses per se, like the physical actual rose that you would see in a botanical garden, but then it still is because I metaphorically break it down and kind of personify that rose. So, for me, it has to do with basically something that I've experienced in life, because I can only write about things that I know about. I don't typically speak about things that I don't know about, so I don't typically write about things that I don't know about. So if it's a poem, I've been through it. And it's a part of me, who I am.
All right. Let's go back for a moment to your beginnings in terms of poetry. What was an early experience where you learned that poetic language had power?
Probably when I was about 12 years old. I've always written. I've always been a writer, and even when I was in school, English and literature were my favorite subjects. And I remember when I think it was about 17, I wrote this poem to enter into a contest, and the poem was about dancing in a white gown. I don't think I won that contest, but I did receive a beautiful, a certificate, of honor and acknowledgement, but I didn't win first prize. But either way, that's when I wrote my first poem that really had a lot of depth and a lot of meaning as to what dancing in that white gown meant to me.
Very nice. Very nice. Very nice. All great writers have great writing influences. Who are some of yours, and what makes them great in your eyes?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. Great writers. Oh, that's a hard one. I read James Patterson books. I read all his books. I love his books. But great writers...
great poets, either one.
I'm not sure if I would say a poet, but Helen Keller. Growing up, I read a lot of things that she would write, and she has said some astounding words. There's just beauty in everything, that she would write about, and how she saw life, But great writers, that's hard because, growing up I read so many, Judy Blume, I'm sorry, but that one has me thinking a little bit too hard.
All right. Please share another poem.
Okay. Another poem. I will share another one out of The Heart of a Rose. Okay. This one isn't titled, but it happens to be one that I wrote, just going through it in life. But because I always referred to myself as a rose. So here we go.
All right.
Yes. It starts off, yes, I'm a rose with many thorns, although no heart will ever mourn, even when pricked by careless tricks. For my love is gracious without scorn. My beauty possesses honor by itself. Essence is greater than carnal wealth. Sophistication never moves in stealth. Beauty of my soul, the mystery untold. Precious flower of every man's desire. Beholds the wisdom of a king's attire. My thorns protect, come at your own risk. No matter how many times he's pricked, comes back for more. I am truly adored. Soft as velvet and devotion like a dove. A rose is bold and will always be loved. That's the end.
Very nice. Your voice seems to take on a different resonance when you share. There's a lot of conviction in terms of what you're emoting. What do you think is the relationship between your speaking voice and your written voice, if there is a relationship?
Okay, so you're saying when I read it's a little bit different, but
yes.
Stronger. I would think that when everyone, you said bolder?
Stronger.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear
Stronger.
that. Stronger.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure. I would say that everybody's, that I've heard or ever, listened to anyone's spoken word seems to be a little bolder when they're, reciting poetry. But I'm not sure how to totally answer that question. I don't know. When I read, it comes from my heart. It's just a part of me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, the reason that I always ask that question is that I know when I share poetry, I feel as if I'm in my fullest essence. And during that particular time, no one could hurt me, harm me, or anything else. But when I come out of that state, it's almost back to normal, where I'm very shy. So I was just wondering.
Oh, yeah, because I'm shy. I am, and it's
you
so
don't
funny
sound like it.
Exactly, and now I get where you're coming from without just telling the whole world that you already know I'm shy. Okay, so with that being said, yes, pretty much I'm very, very extremely reserved. I don't like the spotlight. I don't want to be on stage. None of that. It's not me. I'm just I'm just shy. But I feel like when I speak, it's a word that needs to be heard, and I can't be all timid and shy when there's something that needs to be said.
Oh, wow.
Because words have power. Words have power.
Yes, they do.
So,
yes, they do.
No matter how shy I am, I need to express them with that power in order to be able to do what it's set out to do, and that's to move people.
I'm going to read one of your statements that the beauty of a poem is not in the length of the content, it's in the power of the words. So
yes,
that's extremely power and powerful. I like that again. What do I want to ask you? Let's imagine for a moment that a poem is like a cake, all right? What do you think goes into the concoction we call a cake, or you could call a poem? What goes into it to make it?
Yes. So, with that being said, you cannot bake a cake without eggs. You need flour, you need sugar, you need all of those components in order to get your result.
okay? So one of the things that I used to always say is my grandmother used to bake with love. So I think with poetry, there needs to be love within the poem and within the poet itself. There needs to be experience because I'm not the best baker in the world.
All right.
And I've burnt a few cakes. So my point is in poetry. I think that there should be experience and skill. I think that you should know the English language very well so that you're able to determine what needs to be said. Because, for instance, in my book of The Heart of a Rose, there's a couple of things that people think are actual typos, and they're not.
All right.
I actually meant for it to be that way. But see, here's the thing. I think that it's important that a person who writes poetry has a full understanding of the English language, and as far as commas, periods, knowing where to put these things, and knowing if they've made a mistake. Just like with me, I can go back and say, oh, well, yeah, that was a typo. Let me go fix it. No, I specifically wrote it like that, but I know the difference.
All right. All right. Well, please share. It does make sense. I mean, everything you're saying really makes sense. It's all clear, and I'm right with you. Please share another poem.
Okay. This one is titled, and it's called Emotional Abuse. Emotional abuse. A thief came in the night with a knife and stabbed me twice with words of scrutiny and emotional blasphemy. He stole my peace and even my sense of dignity, broke me with the pain of his words. He stripped me naked and left me in fear of being exposed, gave me roses as a token, but yet, once again, I'm broken. Pleasant words can heal, and lethal ones will kill. How could he come into my life and steal? That's the end of that one.
Mm-hmm. What is the purpose of that particular piece? What's the purpose of that poem?
The purpose of the poem is what emotional abuse is like. Because, a lot of people don't want to speak on that because, for domestic violence, okay, and there's always some type of proof, if someone is battered because it can be seen, okay? But with emotional abuse, sometimes it's 10 times worse. And as is said in the poems, came in the night, which is slickly, okay, not to be seen, with a knife and stabbed me twice, with words. Emotional abuse comes through words, and it does make you lose your sense of dignity. And basically, like it says in the poem, broke me with the pain of his words. That's what emotional abuse does. It takes, and it's still a type of violence. It's still a type of abuse, but it's not seen. So it's just, one of those poems to just let people know that I've been there, done that, seen it, experienced it, and it's real. So that's what that poem's about.
Very nice. Poetry helps people when they read it and they find their story in that particular piece. That's a great thing. That's a great thing. It's a great thing. They say that to see the world with complete honesty, one should look to comedians, artists, and poets. What do you think emerges naturally from your work? What emerges from you?
From my work, pretty much just my heart. My heart emerges from my work. My heart, my life, my experiences, my love, my strength, my weaknesses. That's pretty much what emerges from my poetry, and hopefully to touch someone that even if they've been through what I'm going through or what I've been through, that they're able to just relate, and if they can just feel for 1 second that someone wrote about this, and they wrote it as a poem.
Mm. You know, I want to talk about your books for a moment. You've written 4 books. That's fantastic. Let's first focus on The Heart of a Rose. What inspired it?
Mm-hmm. Well, with The Heart of a Rose, the main reason that I actually wrote that book was only because people kept asking me, well, where's the book? Where can I buy your book? Where can we get your poetry? Because, see, I had already had Love of a Poet, a page on Facebook. I started that page 24 months ago. And I said, when I started it, I said, I don't know where I'm going with this. So I just started posting a couple of quotes. And so I told myself, I said, if I get 50 followers, I'll stick with it. Well, next thing I knew, I had 100. Then I had 1,000. Then I had 3,000.
Wow.
As of today, I think it's like 200. And this is in 24 months. I think it's like 250,000 followers on that page. You know, and I wasn't expecting that. And so what happened was I was putting out poetry, and I was just writing poetry, and I was just putting it out on the page. So finally, I said everything that I've ever posted that I thought was, should be kept or should be put in the book. I just gathered all those poems that I had already posted on the page, and I put them in the Heart of the Rose because that's Heart of a Rose is because that's what, I always write poetry about. And so that's how that book came about.
And Poetic Love Notes?
Poetic Love Notes was written primarily, I would say, by LaVan Robinson. Him and I wrote that book together. We just were going back and forth with words, and he would give me words, and he would write me poems, or he would write poems, and he'd send them to me. And finally, I said, let's put all of these in a book. And so we just collaborated on that one.
Poetic Ecstasy.
Mm-hmm.
What about that one?
Another collaboration. It that was like all of my sensuous poems. More so touching on relationships, intimacy, love, and those type of things. I wouldn't really consider it like erotic poetry. It's subtle. It's clean. It's deep. And that's one of the things about my poetry. I always try to find a way, even when being sensual, even when being sexual, to be able to present these type of things within my words without them being so explicit. Like, I don't do that. Like, I don't use that. I feel like this. My thing is, I have enough words in my vocabulary that I can make you feel without being, I would say, as we
explicit.
say, sometimes, nasty.
All right.
You want to call it that. I find a way.
What about a little poetic? Tell me about a little poetic. And then I have a question.
A little poetic was written and pretty much named that because every poem in the book is pretty much short. I don't write long poetry, so I even have a poem that I think is maybe 10 or 15 words, and it's one of my successful pieces. With that one, what I did was I compiled all of my short poems together and put them in that book.
All right. Here's a question before we take a break. What do you think you learned about yourself writing these books? And you could choose one book or all of them together collectively. What did you learn about yourself?
Wow, that's a good question. I don't think that I actually learned anything about myself. I think what I did is I gave myself.
Okay. So there were no surprises. Were there any surprises?
No, I really think I just gave myself, meaning like I really put me out there because learning myself, I've already knew who I was, and I'm just the type of person that I'm in full understanding of who I am, what my purpose is, what I want in life, so it was just me just putting myself out there, but not so much like learning anything new about me from writing this book.
All right. Let's take a brief break, and we'll be right back.
Okay.
are back. I am Michael Anthony Ingram. I'm here with Teresa James. Teresa, not only is this program about your sharing your work, it's also a call-in show where people call in and they have questions for you. And we have a caller. How do you feel about that?
That's a surprise. Now that is a surprise.
No. If you read my PDF, I talk about people calling me. All right, let's try this. All right.
Okay.
Let's try this.
Let's do it.
All right. Area code 267. The first three numbers are 819. You're on the air. Good evening.
Good evening.
Would you like to? Hello.
Yes. Can you hear me okay?
Yes,
can you
I
hear
can.
me now?
Yes.
Okay,
yes,
great. Good evening to both of you. My name is Teresa as well. And just listening, it's funny, I saw your link earlier today about this broadcast, and I really wanted to get on. I do have a copy of your book, The Heart of a Rose. It's the first book that I purchased by you, but I was excited about it because I write as well, and, just kind of got out there with my first book, and then reading what you have written and then hearing you talk about it now is just really igniting something in my spirit.
Oh, wow.
It really just, one of the things that you talk about, from what I'm gathering in your poetry, are things that are real.
Yes.
Things that have really happened. And, some folks, when they're looking for poetry, like if they think they're reading poetry, they're looking for roses are red and violets are blue. And, that's one of the things that I tell folks, listen, this is not roses are red and violets are blue. This is about things that have really happened, and just putting them in words that, it's not, the whole story is not a long story, but at the end of it, you get it. There's the beginning, a middle, and the end, and you get it. And,
definitely. Yes, that's so true.
It's just, wow. It's just great hearing you, talk about this right now. And I'm going to be quiet, but, I'm happy to have been able to call in and just say this to you, that you
let me
encourage
ask you,
others.
Teresa.
You.
Well, let me ask this before you go. Do you have a question for Teresa? Any question you'd like to ask her about her craft? Anything, actually.
Yeah,
not
sure.
Not you, Teresa. Not you, Teresa. Teresa James. The other Teresa.
Are you thinking about publishing a book, or have you already done so?
Okay. I have published my first book at May 21st of last year, so it's actually past the 1-year anniversary, and it's called Seeds, Trees, Branches, and Leaves. And
I will definitely check that one out.
Wow. Well, thank you.
I will definitely check that one out.
But I think we can learn. Oh, my God. I'm so excited.
I will definitely check that one out. I'm going to have to, in fact, where's my pen? I'm trying to write.
Yes.
If you could send me an email, too, I would love to because that's one of the things that I love to do. I mean, and I just want to mention this to everybody that's listening. I love reading other people's poetry. I love reading poetry books. Like, that's, for me, that's my thing. With me being so busy, I don't get to read as much as I would like to, but I do. I buy poetry, and I buy books, and they're like, I just love them. So I will definitely check that one out.
Wow.
Thank you so much for calling in.
Yes. Also, Teresa, if you email me, there may be an opportunity for you to be on the program and share your work.
Oh, my gosh. Okay. So I need to collect both emails from you guys. And Teresa, I really would love to bond with you because as I'm sitting here and learning and, as I'm listening to you. And, one of the questions that I do have for you, I heard you saying you're somewhat shy.
Mm-hmm.
So do you do spoken word, or when you're reading your poetry, are you reading it, or are you able to recite it from memory? How do you perform your poetry?
Well, I definitely can't recite it from memory. I have a friend that does, and it blows me away. I think that's amazing when someone can do that. No, I don't. I'm just sitting here. I open up the book and kind of just flip through the pages and said, I'll read this one. No, I just, and I don't do spoken word. Like I don't go out to any events or anything like that. The most I'll do is I'll do a recital as far as on like a voice thing and post it to Facebook, let people hear it. But that's about it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Okay. And don't feel bad about that because I'm in the same space there.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Teresa, for calling in.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Yes. All right. It's really nice. I like that. I like when people call in. Teresa James, share another poem.
Yeah. Okay, I was going to do Poetic Ecstasy, but haven't decided which one I will do. So maybe I can do one which is from A Little Poetic. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to take any.
No, this is fine.
Little
this is
breaks
okay.
here. Okay, I'll read this one because, I've dealt with a lot of depression in my life, and I think it's probably why I've written this one at that present time, what I was going through, and it's titled Depression. The sky is gray today, and the sounds I hear bring fear. The darkness grips me tight while holding me near and dear. My days are long, nights are cold. These feelings never become old. Just a lingering sense of wasted time, which keeps ticking inside my mind. Always wondering if hope is blind. Will the sun shine on me today? I remain thinking the sky is gray. That's the end of that one.
I need to allow that one to kind of sink in. That was beautiful. I don't think I've only asked this particular question of maybe one other person, and I think you may have already answered it. Do you find any connection between your health, physical or mental, and your relationship with poetry?
Yeah. I would say that it helps in the sense of the needing to release some emotions, some hurt, some pain, as it says in one of my bios, that now I bleed ink, sharing the world, sharing to the world my feelings instead of being so hurt all the time. I think it provides a way of release. It does, yes. So,
all right.
And I think that there's healing involved, yeah.
Yes, I agree 100%. You mentioned the word world. What do you think is the role of a poet in modern-day society? What are we supposed to do?
Oh, gosh. This reminds me of a poem I wrote a couple of days ago about poetry.
Okay.
I just, honestly, I have some feelings on that as far as I've been saying lately that poetry is dead, and of course I know that it's not, but the reason why I feel that way is because poetry has changed, because people are changing and times are changing. When I think of a poet, I think of someone great. I think of someone deep. I think of someone
I just look at them differently. But today, everybody, right? It's like everybody writes poetry, or everybody passes whatever they have to say off as poetry. You know, I have people that, you know, come into the group sometimes and they write all this stuff and go, "Oh, didn't you like my poem?" And I'm thinking to myself, that was not a poem. You know, so you know, for me, it's like I'm not sure what our poet's supposed to do, because it seems like you know, everybody's writing it, or so what they call to be poetry, and it's just, I don't know, that's really hard for me as far as what a poet is supposed to be doing. If that makes sense at all.
It does make sense. It does make sense. You've written 4 books. You teach groups. You hundreds of poems. Where does your poetic doubt begin, and where does it end?
The only doubt that I have in writing poetry is that people may not understand. They may not really get what I'm trying to say. You know, I had someone tell me once after reading one of my poems that wasn't poetry because it was just plain everyday words. And I was like, okay, well, it was poetry, it rhymed, you know. But, you know, he said to me, he said, well, poetry is supposed to be complex. It's supposed to, you know, you're not supposed to be able to understand it. I said, listen, I said, if I'm going to speak to you, I want you to understand. I don't want to speak and people have to try to figure out and decipher and make up their own, you know, thoughts and feelings and what they think I may have been trying to say. I want you to know what I'm saying. So that's one of the reasons why my words are so simple, you know, when I'm writing.
Well, you know, it's funny that I usually ask the question about the importance of accessibility. And the question is, how hard should you work to understand a poem? How hard should you work? That's usually the question that I ask.
Well, for me, I don't want to work that hard. If I got, because you know, I don't like abstract poetry.
Okay,
if I have to break my brain and try to sit there and figure out, you know, what was he trying to say? What was that great poet trying when he said this, that, you know? So, yeah.
Share another poem.
I don't know about
Share another
that.
poem. Favor us again. Favor us again.
Okay, I'm going to read one that is just really simple, very simple. It's called Afternoon Stroll. Take a walk with me, and let's stop to lay beneath the lover's tree in the valley. I will tell you my dreams and maybe even my fantasies. Gazing into your eyes is a delight indeed. The aroma of the flowers' presence in the air leads me to run my fingers through your hair. Oh, my darling, you are like the cherry blossoms to me, a sure sign as the first days of spring. To give you my love awaits a wedding ring. That's it.
Oh, there is something about your voice. Like I said again, it just commands the room. It really, really does. It really does.
Wow.
All right. You know, if you had an opportunity to live in a different era, where would it have been? Where would you have wanted to exist and write poetry?
What era? I'm not sure. Maybe in the times when the Songs of Solomon was written, maybe in those times. It seems like, you know, the way that they wrote there. In fact, there's one poem in the Song of Solomon is just absolutely beautiful. I have posted it even in my groups, and you know, did like a, where did this come from? You know, and people would write and say, oh my God, it's all about. It's one of the most beautiful poems. So maybe in that time, I would have loved to write, and also probably maybe in the early 1900s.
Okay. You know, you're an old poetess. You've worked, you've written.
I don't know about that.
I meant that in the most positive way. Here's the question. Have your favorite poems arrived already, or are they still on their way?
That's a good question. There's a couple that I love. I love them. So I would say a few have arrived, but I think there's one that's still inside of me that must come out that will also be one of my favorites.
Okay. You know, as you think about your poetry, has any poem ever frightened or humbled you that you've written?
No, it hasn't. Not frightened or humbled me. Not in my opinion. No, I don't believe so.
Okay.
Or I don't feel as though. No.
All right then. Very nice. Are you willing to be hurt by the poetry of others? That's a tough one. I don't think I've ever asked that one.
Willing to be hurt? No. Enlightened, maybe. A little blown away, but never hurt, no.
All right. Share another poem.
Okay, this one I will share for all my friends that seem to go through PTSD and other emotional things. And like I was saying, that most of my poems are extremely short. And this one is from A Little Poetic. It isn't titled, but it begins, secret and lies beneath the lies, truth disguised as the darkness blinds. Who knows where raging winds blow? In my mind is where delusions seem to go. Haunting memories of the past creeping in like cancer's mask. Remedies for a cure. Can't take this anymore. That's the poem.
Wow.
That's it.
I can't take this anymore. And, you know, some poets claim, Teresa, that a poem is like a living creature. Once it's out, there's not much you can do to correct or improve it, while others edit meticulously, not leaving much from the original draft form. What is your take on the process of editing?
Pretty much when I write my poems, that's what it is. It's not a huge edit involved. Like, as I'm writing, I'm pretty much saying exactly what needs to be said. I do go back and adjust things. And a lot of times what I do, as far as if any editing needs to be done, is I make sure it flows. Because, you know, I have heard someone say, oh, well, you know, that was a little clunky. When I'm dealing with my emotions, I pretty much don't like to go with, you know, what's clunky, because I need to get that out. But what I do try to do is, if something needs to be edited, I always go back and make sure it sounds like everything just has a flow to it, and that it sounds nicely. So that's about all I have on that.
All right. You know, as you think about a poem, what do most well-written poems have in common?
Well-written poems.
Mm-hmm. And this is your own interpretation of what a well-written poem is. There are no rights or wrongs on this one, on any of my questions.
I think most well-written poems has a sense of truth in them, has a lot of truth in them, has a lot of integrity, has a lot of boldness. I think very well-written poems have the ability to touch the reader in a place, you know, where they can say, I feel this, I understand this, I know this. You know, that's my take on what a well-written poem has in it.
All right. Conversely, what do most poorly written poems have in common?
Did you say poorly written?
Yes.
Oh, wow. Well,
I'm a tough one. That's why they pay me the big bucks, Teresa. To throw those questions out there.
Poems have in them I would say most poorly poems have just have a sense of just dryness, like
okay,
in the same words, a repetition of words. Just I don't know. That one's a hard question, but like, can I say? Is this? Can I say this? Why? It's just garbage.
Yes.
Like,
yes,
I mean,
yes. It's just you now. Nobody else is here. Nobody else is here.
A poorly written poem is pretty much you just read it and you be like, no, that's garbage.
Well, let me put a disclaimer up that poorly written is, what's the word, relative, because everybody defines their own work in their own way. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So I'll put that out there,
So, and that is
yes.
true. Mm-hmm. Because someone may think mine is garbage too. So,
yes.
That's a hard question.
It is. We'll be right back. I think we need a break. All right, we'll be right back. All right, again, I am Michael Anthony Ingram. I'm here with the wonderful Teresa James, and I want to ask you something, Teresa.
Yes.
If you could tell your younger writing self anything, what would it be?
My younger writing self.
Yes.
I don't quite know how to answer that question because I wrote when I was young. And
okay.
I don't think that I wrote, like, I stopped writing when I was 18, and I started writing again when I was 48. So there was...
Oh, really? Wow, that's
so
quite
there
a
was
span.
30 years that, there was 30, I wasn't writing poetry, so I wrote my last poetry when I was 17 or... I wrote my last poem when I was 17 or 18 years old, and I wrote my next poem when I was 48.
Oh, wow.
So there was no writing in between, so I don't know how to quite answer that question.
So it sounds like something in you needed to come out, and writing poetry was a way for it to happen. Yes, I can understand.
Definitely.
I can understand.
It was something that, it was something that I needed to do. There were some words that needed to be said, and I just wanted to put them. I just wanted to put them out there, kind of like putting something powerful out in the atmosphere. Words are powerful.
Yes, they are.
And it just, so it's a long time.
Yes, wow, that is quite a span. That's a long time. I'm stunned, to be quite honest. But things happen, and we stop some things, and we pick up other things. That's just how life is.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm not going to hold you all night, Teresa. I'm not going to hold you all night. But please favor us again. Favor us again with a poem.
Okay, this one is out of A Little Poetic, so it's very short. And it's not titled, but it is the last poem in the book of A Little Poetic. And it goes, I am the kind of poem which many cannot quite understand. My words puncture the soul and cut through hard layers of disbelief one beholds. I'll tell you the deep, hidden truths that never been told, mysteries of the divine which have been covered through time to be released into the heart of the one who relates to mine. Peace and tranquility is the end, only if honesty is your best friend.
I like that. can you give any advice to someone wanting to write and publish poetry? Any nugget of truth?
Anyone that's wanting to write poetry, I definitely can believe it can be done, because I know people who, have degrees in certain type of writing and things like that, because pretty much it's just a little bit of skill, knowledge. So I would say if you want to do it, do it. Get it done. And publishing is a very easy process. It's a lot easier than people even think that it is, because I did all of my publishing myself. I wrote my books. I formatted them. I did all of that. I didn't go through a publisher. So I would say just get it done.
Mm-hmm.
Get it done.
Wow.
And I created, and I want to speak on this. I want to say this also. I created the author's spot, and that's a place where you can learn all the information that you are seeking in publishing a book. And I'm on Facebook, so the author's spot on Facebook.
The author's spot. Check it out, good people.
Yes.
The author's spot. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to close here. Give me one more poem. Give me one more for the road.
Here's the thing. I want to read something out of Poetic Ecstasy.
Okay.
I'm not saying that this is not poetry, but with Poetic Ecstasy, it's a little different, because, like with Levan, he writes a lot of prose, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And so what I did was I took that and I broke it down. And I made stanzas, and I did some edits. So we're going back to the edits to try to make it a combination of both. So I think I should read something out of this book, because I didn't read anything out of it. I just want to find the one. I'm sorry, you guys. No breaks. Okay. Oh, geez. Let me just say this one. I'm coming in, just opening the book here.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
It's called Together, Forever, Making. Situations will change or get blown out of proportion, but as the days go on, girl, I'll give you more love and my utmost devotion. I'll keep it always exciting within this love ocean and love you down with the slowest of motion. I'll make it feel like something out of an erotic dream, and in passion's delight, you'll let out small, exotic screams, and 1,000 delights. You'll be squirming and control will be shaken from the passionate artistry that we'll be forever making. That's one of the poems out of Poetic Ecstasy. I kind of fumbled there a little bit. But
that's okay.
One.
I didn't hear it. Teresa. That's okay. What do you hope readers get?
This is a whole different story.
What do you hope readers get from encountering your work, encountering your poems? What do you hope readers get?
Oh, they're going to get a whole lot of different things. They're going to get a flood of emotions. They're going to get sensuous. They're going to get love. They're going to get everything out of these poems. So,
all right. Okay, here we go. We're almost there. Where can listeners find your work?
Okay.
Where can they find your work?
Let me try to do this without fumbling live on here.
Let me say one thing. I've never told a poet before to listen. I don't know how that's going to come across when you play it back. But I meant it in a loving way. All right.
This is all good. I am so glad you had me on. It really helped me a lot, because I'm not a live person, and then like with having a podcast, everything's pre-recorded. So let me tell you, we edit out everything. But I know this is like they getting it all right here. They're going to just get it all.
And I'm so pleased. I'm so pleased that you came alive. You came alive, and I love that. I really, really do. Okay, where can listeners find your work?
Okay, well, first of all, at www.teresajamespoetry.com.
There you will find my books where you can purchase. And if you purchase from that site, I will sign the copy and give you one of my homemade beautiful bookmarks and beautiful packaging and little stickers and all the love. I send that out when you order from that site. But I can also be found on Amazon. My books, just type in Teresa James and they'll all pop up. So that's where they can find my work. Oh, and they can find my work on Facebook at Love Notes 2. And that's Love Notes TOO 2, Love of a Poet group. I have several poetry groups, so just go on there. They'll be able to see my other groups. Yeah.
Oh wow! They can also find your work on Audible, right?
Yes, I do have. Well, yeah, I do. I have a audiobook of The Heart of a Rose, narrated by Courtney Young. Just a beautiful. She did a beautiful job.
Yes, she did.
Yeah,
she really did.
Yeah, you had a chance to listen, and
yes.
And what did you think?
Yes, it was great. I was on a train, and I listened to it, and
oh wow,
I felt joyful. For whatever reason, I felt loved. I felt like you were, I don't know, it was just a nice, and her voice was incredible too. So that added to yes, it was a wonderful, wonderful book. So I recommend it as well. I really do. Audible, check it out. Check it out.
You.
Okay, Teresa, my very last question. I'll let you go. What's next for you?
Rush.
Where do you? Wait a minute, you're in no rush. Okay.
Well, I have some coffee. Like, I said it was your time, but I have some coffee, so now I'm like.
So you in it now. All right. I like that. Well, give me one more poem then, since you feeling it. Give me one more.
Okay, I sure will. Let's see. Which one is a good one? A lot of people seem to love this one.
Okay.
And I love the way Courtney read this, too, so I'll read it. It's not titled, but it's just a very sweet and very short, very sweet and short. So it starts. Your love for me is like a honeycomb, sweetness to my soul and health to my bones. With you I feel comfort and the peace that only one could dream of. Many have come, yet no one can compare to you. Every day our love feels brand new. You are the morning sun, and my days will always be bright. My lover, my friend, my sanctuary at night. That's it.
Wow. Does writing energize or exhaust you?
Never exhaustion. It's always a release, so it's always when it's over and when it's done, when it's written, I feel like 10 times better. I feel so much better.
All right.
Yeah.
So, again, back to my question. What's next for you? Where do you go from here?
Where do I go from here? Well, I just pretty much, I'm just going to continue doing what I do as far as the author spot. That's a big thing right now. I did that because it's hard to publish and it's hard to sell books if you're not famous. If you're Oprah, great. If you're Steve Harvey, great. But if you're not, it's hard to sell books and no one knows who you are. And I want to say that because I need everyone to understand that it is hard. So one of the things I wanted to do is I wanted to provide a place where people can ask all the questions that they want to know about publishing, what may be best, the pros, the cons, the ins, the outs, resources, and give them resources of doing so, and just knowing about, self-publishing or even going with a traditional publisher or whatever. But, even when going with those, they're not big on promoting books either. So that's what I wanted to do as far as helping people to promote. And so I spend most of my time, in the author spot. But I will continue to write poetry, and I will continue to post to my page. So,
that's as far as I'm gonna. I guess where I'm going is just helping other authors succeed and getting the tools and information that they need, and me to continue to just write poetry for the world, to share.
All right. I've got the biggest smile on my face because I am so glad that I found you. I really, really am. I really am. I'm just pleased more than you'll ever know that I took the chance, the risk, to send you a message to say I wanted you to be on my show. And that makes me really happy. Yes, we've had fun tonight. Teresa, I wish you nothing but continued success, the best that life has to offer. Your writing is sublime. Wow, I think that I could say 1,000 other words, but I'm in a joyful mood because your poetry, it was just great. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
All right. To our listening audience, I want to thank you for tuning in. And as I share every week, let poetry ring somewhere throughout the land. Good night, everybody. Take care, Teresa.
Good night.
Talk to you soon. All right. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Yes. Bye.